Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Portland Children's Levy Allocation Committee, June 2nd, 2014. I'm City Commissioner and Allocation Committee Chair Dan Saltzman. On my far left is Serena Stoudemire-Wesley. She is the Citizen Representative for Multnomah County. On my immediate left is Multnomah County Commission Chair Marisa Madrigal. On my right is Julie S. Young, who is the City of Portland appointed representative. And on my far right is Mitch Horniker, representing the Portland Business Alliance. I'll introduce the Levy staff now. We have Director Lisa Pellegrino, Assistant Director Meg McElroy, Lisa Hansel, Mary Gay Broderick, and John Kelly. Today is the second of two important meetings where the Allocation Committee actually makes funding decisions for our investments that begin on July 1st of 2014. Just last Friday, on May 30th, we made $12.2 million in new investments in childhood hunger relief, in mentoring, and after-school programs. Today, we will make investment decisions on early childhood, foster care, and child abuse prevention and intervention programs. The decisions for funding are being made in a three-step process. First, we, as an allocation committee, set strategies and goals for our funding direction. We did this last November. Second, we asked review panels and staff to provide us with their recommendations. And finally, where we're at today, the allocation committee uses its best judgment after weighing all the factors, recommendations, and testimony to arrive at its funding decisions. As our earlier meetings were solely dedicated to hearing staff's funding recommendations and testimony from applicants, there will be no public testimony at today's meeting. And allocation committees will be presenting, discussing, and then ultimately voting on new investments. As we all noted, as all of us I think noted on Friday, arriving at these funding decisions has been very difficult, as there are so many worthy organizations and not enough funding to go around. We received over 3 times the amount of funding requests as we actually have money to invest. And in some of those categories, it was even more exacerbated in terms of the imbalance. So it's important to let you know that whether you receive levy funds today or you do not, we want you to know that we think your work is vitally important to the city and to the children of Portland, and we encourage you to continue in your efforts. So we have no minutes to approve from our Friday meeting, so now I'll turn it over to Levy staff, who will give us a brief overview of how the funding scenarios will work today.
All right, good afternoon. Before we get started, I just want to take a minute again to recognize and thank all of the hard work that's gone into this process. And I particularly want to say that as we as a staff and every applicant in this room are working toward collective impact in this community, we as a staff recognize that processes like this that are competitive are difficult for many in the room and for the relationships that are built through that collective impact process. But we look forward to continuing that work when this process is complete. So just to remind everyone how we arrived at today, applications were submitted by organizations and they were scored by reviewers, volunteer reviewers. The full application and summaries of each of the application were provided to the allocation committee. The scores from the reviewers on the applications, along with staff recommendations and rationale for funding, were provided to the committee as well as to all the applicants. Applicants were able to advocate for their applications by providing testimony at public meetings and also by contacting individual committee members. Before this meeting, each of the allocation committee members was given a tool by staff, which we call a slate, on which they could make their individual preferences for each funding area for the applications they wished to see funded, the funding level for each application, and the percentage allocation to the strategies for the program areas to the extent that that's applicable. Staff received each of their individual preferences and then aggregated them to understand the amount of agreement in each of the program areas for any given application and the range of funding that was recommended for each individual. So to structure today's discussion, for each program area, we're going to start with the applications where there's the greatest number of agreement of committee members that are interested in funding that application. And we will take them in score order. So the highest scoring application for which there's the most agreement will start first. We will proceed down the list in order of agreement and then highest scoring within agreement. Any questions on that process? Great. So the first program area that we will start with decision-making today is early childhood. And before we get started, Lisa Pellegrino has something to say.
Yeah, I wanted to publicly apologize for an error that came to light at the 11th hour on Friday at 4 o'clock with a couple of that affects a couple of the applications. It was my personal mistake to think that Lynchwood was not included in the city boundaries. I had misinformation, and I thought that the city boundary ended at 162nd there. It actually is at 174th. The border jogs in various places of the city, and I had mistakenly thought that Lynchwood was outside of that border. So one of the applications... Lynchwood Elementary, okay. Yes, which is in the Centennial School District.
Okay.
And one of the applications in early childhood was asking for funding for that site, and staff had made the recommendation not to fund that because we thought it was outside the city boundary. We thought that it was past that 162nd Avenue boundary there, which was incorrect. So I just wanted to make sure that I publicly apologize to the committee and to the relevant applicants for that error, and Meg will review with you a few options if you are interested in trying to include that site in the funding in today's discussion.
Thanks, Lisa. Before we move fully into the discussion on early childhood, I want to remind you all that from your decisions on Friday, there is a remaining unspent balance that was carried forward to today of about $242,000. And before we move into your decision-making in the program areas, I wanted to ask you all to make a procedural decision about how we want to handle the balance. And here are your options as we see them. The first is to decide now whether you want to move all or a portion of that balance to any of the 3 given program areas today. Or your second option is to hold on to it and make your decisions as follows. Take the original amount of money that was allocated in the RFI for early childhood, make your decisions in early childhood based on that amount, and then look at what's available in the balance and figure out whether or not you want to use any of it toward the things you want to do in early childhood. If not, go on to your foster care program area decisions. Using the original amount that was allocated in the RFI for foster care, make all of your decisions in that program area, look at the balance that's available, determine whether or not you want to use it in foster care, use it or not, and then proceed with the decision-making in child abuse prevention intervention. So option A is apportion it now. Option B is hold on to it. Discussion.
Sorry.
Yeah,
okay. I think I would feel more comfortable if we could go through each section, all 3 sections, and allocate funds, and then see where we are. Because it's sort of arbitrary the order that we're taking these things in, and I would just like to preserve that flexibility for us.
I agree.
Other
You want to
thoughts or other thoughts, comment? I think that sounds like the right approach to me.
Okay, so we'll hold on to it and we'll proceed with decision making and revisit it as needed or interested. Okay, sounds good. All right, in that case, to get started in early childhood, you have another procedural decision to consider. So based on the information that Lisa Pellegrino just shared, you have the option to figure out whether you are interested in providing services to 8 school sites that were collectively proposed between 2 applicants. And in order to do so, staff can provide you with options. The way in which you would have to do that varies from the original preferences you each submitted. So the preferences you each submitted did not account for being able to serve Lynchwood Elementary School. So if you're interested in doing that, between the 2 applications that collectively want to serve 8 different schools, one of which is Lynchwood, another is Shaver Elementary School, which was proposed by each of the applicants. There are ways in which you could structure your decisions of funding so that you were providing services at each of the schools without having one school getting 2 sets of services. Okay? So one option that varies from where you are now, which is funding for 5 of the sites with Latino Network, which excludes funding Shaver Elementary School, and funding Metropolitan Family Services for one of its 2 sites, and the one site that you originally were looking at there was Shaver Elementary School because we thought Lynchwood was excluded. If you wanted to include funding for Latino Network to serve Shaver Elementary School and leave the remaining funding that your preferences indicated for Metropolitan Family Services to serve Lynchwood, you would need to find $120,000 among your aggregated preferences right now to fund services at all of the schools, with Latino Network providing the services at Shaver Elementary. The other option is to find $245,000 from your collective aggregated choices to fund services at Shaver Elementary School provided by Metropolitan Family Services, as well as Lynchwood, and to have Latino Network stay at the 5 out of 6 schools that they proposed. So that would exclude them serving Shaver Elementary School. So as we proceed down this list, you have the option of $120,000 and additionally to Latino Network, or $245,000 additionally to Metropolitan Family Services. Do you have any questions on the 2 different options here?
So if we wanted to pursue the option of Latino Network doing 6 school sites, including Shaver, and then Metropolitan Family Services doing Lynchwood, we would have to find $120,000 in reductions.
That's correct.
And do you have a recommendation?
I
or is it just a straight recommendation?
Yeah, right.
Straight across the top type of a.
You could do about what amounts to about a 1% reduction for all of your existing choices in order to get there. It's essentially increments of $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000 depending on the size of the grant. If you applied a straight 1% reduction across all of them, with the exception of Latino Network and MFS, you end up with, you're about $20,000 short of that $120,000 mark. If you apportion it out to $5,000, $10,000, and $15,000 increments, you get about $6,000 short. So based on how your aggregated preferences work out, I can guide you through either of those 2 options. Or if you want to pursue the $245,000 option to fund MFS to provide the services at both of the sites that they proposed, you would need to eliminate funding probably for another grant in here, or significantly reduce one or more of the allocations that you showed preference for already.
So we should decide this right now.
I think if you want to provide services at all 8 of those schools, it might be easiest for you to decide which option you're interested in, whether it's the $120,000 option or $245,000 option. It will help us guide your decision making.
And that, just to be clear, the 120 is Shaver through Latino Network and Lynchwood through
Metropolitan Family Services. That's correct.
And that would mean Metropolitan Family Services would just serve the Lynchwood school in that.
That's correct.
One school.
That's correct.
So I guess the opening question is, do we want to serve 8 school sites?
I'm confused. I thought it was 7.
Am I counting wrong?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Maybe I'm counting wrong.
You're right.
Okay.
Yep, good.
Glad
good.
somebody's keeping
Thank you.
close score here.
There was actually an 8th site. Latino Network proposes an expansion in year 3, but the options that were being discussed today exclude them from having the ability to fund that. You could do that, but that's that would be $187,000 that you would need to shave out.
I would say that one note, I think, is that we, I believe, already have based our decision-making on Metropolitan Family Services serving Shaver.
That's correct.
And I don't see a reason to reverse that. So
Okay.
I would be inclined to have them serve both Shaver and Lynchwood.
Okay. So you're in favor of the $245,000 option? Okay.
Yes.
Well, wait a minute. They wouldn't be getting the extra 245.
It wouldn't be an
They would just
extra.
keep what we currently have allocated for them.
Unless I'm misunderstanding you, Metropolitan Family Services in your current individual preferences right now has a $245,000 allocation to serve one school, Shaver Elementary.
Yes.
So in order for them to be able to serve the second school, Lynchwood, they would need an additional $245,000.
I guess if that's how the budget shows, I thought perhaps that there's shared personnel or shared staffing in that. I wasn't
No,
aware that
their
it's-
total request was $494,000.
Okay.
And each application that they submitted was for each school. You'll see it's applications numbers 9 and 10. And the approximate amount per school that they requested was $245,000.
So the Latino Network would be serving Shaver at a lesser amount?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Then that changes my thinking. But also would appreciate staff having any additional reflection on that.
The things to consider in staff's opinion are Latino Network was a higher scoring application. It is a culturally specific provider. For Metropolitan Family Services, they have an established relationship with Shaver Elementary School. They operate the Sun site there. So to me, there are sort of equal trade-offs in terms of how you all want to approach your decision making. I think it's up to you about which of those things you want to hold as your criteria for driving your decision.
I guess you're saying they have the Metropolitan has a relationship, but information we received from the principal at Park Road saying that they both have relationships with Schaefer's.
Yes, my understanding is that there was confusion within Park Row School District between the superintendent and another person in the central district regarding which partner was going to be serving which site through the applications that were submitted to the Children's Levy. And I'm sure that I'm not sure if the superintendent is here, but I'm sure that they would appreciate services at their school. There was nothing that led me to believe that they would be disappointed in the outcome either way. The superintendent did send an email to you all suggesting that she wanted services at Shaver, and she did mention the Metropolitan Family Services Ready, Set, Go program in that email.
Further thoughts or discussion on? I mean, it seems like we want to do 6 school, early.
7.
7.
7.
Early childhood.
6 with Latino Network.
7 early childhood programs. It's a question, it seems at this point, whether we have Metropolitan Family
provides the
Services, who provides to Shaver
Exactly.
and Lynchwood.
Right.
If the services provided at Shaver for Latino Network preserve more funding than for other programs because it is a less amount, as long as we are assured that the quality and the service will be the same, children will be served. To me, that
The
is
children will
really
be
what
served,
you need.
and we've been funding Latino Network for the past several years, and they've done excellent work. So yes, it is
Yes.
a lesser expensive program, so to speak. That's a poor choice of words. It costs less to purchase that service in light of the structuring that you've been provided here in these applications than it does to purchase the other.
Okay.
So it's really up to you all which provider you would prefer to see. They are proposing to serve a similar population, Latino children who are ages 3 to 5, and with a very similar type of program, which is preschool groups that are heavily reliant upon parent involvement.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion that we take the 120 to fund Latino Network and use the current and that Metropolitan Family Services serve Lynchwood.
Okay, so,
Second.
All right.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? And does it imply that we would therefore reduce everybody by about 1% in order
By about
to get
1%, yeah.
Get that 120,000, or is that
It's 1% will get you to about 100,000, and you'll
100,000?
yeah. Or I can give you $5,000 and $10,000 and $15,000 increments that will get you to about $6,000 away from 120,000.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, so we can just vote on this motion first, and then we'll discuss how we pay for
Sorry
it.
for the confusion.
That's how we pay for it later.
Okay. Okay,
Since we already have money on hold, I mean,
Okay, all in favor of the motion to have Latino Network serve, I keep getting that wrong,
Shaver Elementary School,
Shaver Elementary, and then Metropolitan Family Services to serve Lynchwood Elementary.
that's correct.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Okay, it's unanimous.
All right, so we're going to start with the first application that's on your list that all 5 of you agreed to fund, which is Hacienda CDC, the Portland Niños program. And all 5 of you were in agreement to fund that program at $460,000. And all 5 of you were in agreement that all of that funding would go toward its home visiting strategy, which was the only strategy it proposed to address. Discussion? Last time
Okay.
you all made,
Yeah, we did motions.
460. You all did motions for each decision, so.
Okay.
just-
So I'll entertain a motion to approve Hacienda Portland Niños.
So moved. Second.
Can
Okay.
I make just quick clarification? So as we go through this, do you want me to be offering you a revised amount? So your original allocations or choices were based on not having had that additional information about Lynchwood.
Right.
So in order to get to the goal that you just clarified, do you want me to give you a $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 increment below?
Well,
No, we said we'd wait.
Okay, you'll wait till the end. Okay,
Right, wait.
all right. Got it. Okay, sorry.
Okay.
Thanks. All right, the second on the list,
So that was approved, yeah.
you got it, okay.
What about your strategy? Do you want to give a
Yeah,
percentage?
I think we did vote.
Did an overview of how so the audience could follow.
John, do you want to put 100% in the home visiting strategy for that? It occurs to me that many of the folks in this room who weren't here on Friday are probably not entirely sure what tool this is that John's using. John, do you want to go through it really quick?
Sure. So the amount in the upper left corner, $10,193,134 is the original RFI allocation to early childhood. If we wanted to add anything to that total, it would go in the next box. So the total available is there. Total allocated is a running total of the grants that have been approved, and then in the yellow box is the balance. The rainbow colors on the right are the 3 strategies in this area: intensive home visiting, preschool Head Start, and early childhood mental health. Down at the bottom, there are strategy goals that were set by the committee: 50% to the intensive home visit, 35% to the Head Start, and 15% to early childhood mental health. On the left is culturally specific, the lavender area. And so if an agency, it's based on the agency status or the organization status.
Or the programs, or the program status. Programs and agencies, continue.
Okay. So that will inform the 30% culturally specific provider goal.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so the next program on the list, for which all 5 of you agreed, was IRCO's Child and Parent Success Program. And all 5 of you had an interest in funding that at $760,000. There was a little bit of variance in your strategies here. Staff had recommended 100% to home visiting for this, which 3 out of 5 of you agreed with. 2 of you suggested 80% to home visiting and 20% to preschool, which is what the applicant requested. How do you all want to proceed with strategy allocations with this applicant?
I would be in favor of going with the staff recommendation for 100%
To the home visiting.
home visiting.
That was the staff recommendation?
That was a staff recommendation.
100% home visiting?
Mhm.
Okay. Any discussion on that point? Or- No?
Second.
Okay. So we'll move and second that 100% of the investment would go towards home visiting. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then we need to vote on the amount. Is everybody comfortable since we all landed at the same place? Need a motion to invest $760,000 in IRCO child,
And Parent Success Program.
yeah,
So moved.
Second.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved.
All right, third one on the list, Latino Networks Juntos Aprendemos program. Based on your previous discussion, the amount of allocation that you've agreed on here is $750,000,
54.
100% of it going to the preschool strategy.
Wouldn't it be 754? because of your new,
No, that average is based on the average of each of your individual preferences. So from 630, which funded 5 sites to get them additional 120 to fund 6 sites, is 750.
I'm seeing our recommendations in the $630,000.
That's not your that's an average of your individual recommendations. That average reflects 5 different people's different preference numbers.
Right?
So previously, 4 out of 5 of you were at 630,000, and one was at 650.
Okay.
So
I'm just curious, how do you have 750 up here? That's what I'm confused about.
my original recommendation was to fund 5 schools. That was $630,000.
Oh, I'm sorry.
If we add the 120, we get to 750.
oh, because in our average amount of location, it says 634 allocation.
Right, that average isn't a decision point. It's just
Okay.
a reflection of the average of your 5 individual preferences.
Okay.
And we just added 1 school.
You added 1 school.
Okay, sorry
So
about that.
that's all right.
Okay.
Oh, it's confusing. I understand. 750 would be the allocation that would go in this area, given your previous discussion and decision.
Okay, if there's any discussion, open for motions.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to approve $750,000 for Latino Network Juntos Aprendos programs, early childhood programs.
Okay,
Discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, that's approved.
great. Number 4, Metropolitan Family Services Ready, Set, Go program at Lynchwood Elementary School. 5 out of 5 of you agreed about this, and the allocation amount there would be $245,000.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Metropolitan Family Services.
Yes.
Lynchwood Elementary is approved.
The next, Morrison Child and Family Services, the Early Childhood Mental Health Consultation. 5 out of 5 of you had a preference to fund this program, and the 5 out of 5 of you agreed on a preferred amount of $1,450,000.
Any discussion or motion?
I move that we invest $1,450,000 in Morrison's Early Childhood Mental Health Program.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, Morrison Early Childhood Mental Health is approved.
The next application is Morrison's Listos para Aprender program. 5 out of 5 of you also agreed that you were interested in funding this program. You have a wider range here of variance. 4 out of 5 of you preferred to fund it at $1,050,000, and 1 of you wanted it funded at $820,000. Discussion?
No, I'll agree with the $1,004,000.
Okay.
The $1,004,000 is
$1,050,000, is that?
No, it's 1,004,000, isn't it?
That's the average,
that's
Yeah,
the average.
That's the average, so.
1.05.
Sounds like there's some discussion on this one?
Well, I'm in favor of a significant investment. This is a solid program serving very young children in home visits, and it's culturally specific. And so I would favor the $1,050,000.
Okay. Any further discussion or motion?
So moved.
You're moving the $1,050,000? Okay. Moved and seconded for $1,050,000 for Morrison Listo para Aprenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's approved.
Okay, Impact Northwest, Parent-Child Development Services. All 5 of you had an interest in funding this program. Again, 4 out of 5 of you interested in funding it at $530,000, and 1 of you at $550,000. Discussion.
I will go with the PAC and do $530,000.
530,000?
I move that we do the fund.
Second.
Moved and seconded, $530,000 for Impact Northwest Parent-Child Development Services. Any further discussion?
Can I just,
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
And can I just clarify that 4 of you followed staff's recommendation that 100% of the funding would go toward the home visiting strategy. 1 of you had apportioned it out in the way that the applicant had submitted for 67% to home visiting and 33% to preschool.
Okay.
I'll move to put 100% of it into home visitation.
Okay. Okay. Moved and seconded that 100% of that go to home visitation. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay.
All right.
So next,
The NAIA Family Center Early Childhood Programs. All 5 of you were interested in funding this program. 4 out of 5 of you had a allocation amount of $450,000, and 1 of you had an allocation amount of $650,000. Similarly, 1 of you had an allocation that differed from the others around strategy. 1 of you wanted to allocate 38% toward home visiting and 62% to preschool. Staff's recommendation, and the rest of you had allocated 100% of your amount to home visiting. Discussion.
I will go with the majority and do it.
I'll move for 450, 100% home visitation for NAIA early childhood.
Second.
okay, moved and seconded, $450,000. NAIA early childhood programs, 100% of that going to home visiting. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's approved.
The next application, Neighborhood House, the Early Oregon Pre-Kindergarten Program. 5 out of 5 of you wanted to fund this, and you were all in agreement of an amount of $880,000.
Okay, entertain a motion.
I move that we fund Neighborhood House Early Oregon Pre-K Program, $880,000, 100% for home visiting.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, Neighborhood House Early Oregon Pre-Kindergarten is approved.
The next one is Peninsula Children's Learning Center. 5 out of 5 of you agreed you wanted to fund this program. 4 out of 5 of you had an amount of $450,000, and 1 of you had an amount of $500,000. Discussion.
I move that we fund this particular program at the $460,000 at the average amount.
460, okay. Okay, that's moved. I'll second that. So it's $10,000 more per year than where most of us arrived at.
Well, not per year, for 3 years.
For 3
$10,000 more for 3 years.
Oh, 10,000 for 3 years, okay, over 3 years. Yeah,
460, is that?
460, yeah. Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, that's approved.
All right, the next one is Mount Hood Community College Early Head Start. All 5 of you had an interest in funding this program. 4 out of 5 of you had an amount of $875,000, and 1 of you had an amount of $885,000. Discussion.
I move that we do it at $877,000, the average.
Okay, I'll second that. So any discussion on that? So it's a net increase of 2,000 over 3 years of where we all sort of landed.
Right.
Right, okay.
With the idea that you are going to be revisiting this at the end,
Yeah,
potentially
but
for
we're
your
going to have to
earlier years.
revisit this
Yep.
before the day's over.
Yep,
Okay.
yep, okay.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. That passes. Mount Hood Community College Early Head Start.
All right, the next one is Portland Public Schools Head Start. All 5 of you had an interest in funding this one. 4 out of 5 of you had an amount of $820,000, and 1 of you had an amount of $723,134, which put you at an average of $800,000.
I move that we fund Portland Public Schools Head Start at $820,000.
Okay, moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Portland Public Schools Head Start is approved.
The next one that you had an interest in funding is Friendly House Preschool. All 5 of you agreed on that one. There is a greater range there of funding amounts from $150,000 to $220,000, and the average is $188,000.
Discussion or motion?
Staff had mentioned in the notes that the 190 was a slight increase from the previous year.
Funding amount,
Mhm.
I think it's 60.
And
The current amount is around 61,000 per year, so.
so not much of an increase, just a slight. Okay. I move that we fund the Friendly House Preschool at 190.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded, 190,000 over 3 years for Friendly House Preschool. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, it's approved.
And this is the last one. You all agreed to fund Albina Early Head Start. 5 out of 5 of you agreed, and the amount that you agreed on, which you all agreed, was $1.4 million. If we put that amount in here, it exceeds your balance available due to the way in which you made your first very initial decision around the funding for services at those 7 elementary schools.
Mhm.
It's
Okay, open for,
128, is that it? 128, 886, 866 is the over?
And what is their current funding?
it's $454,000 annually, I think. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty sure.
can you multiply that by 3 for us?
Who's current funding?
Albina's current grant amount is $454,415
Per year.
per year.
Per year, right.
454, yes. Sorry.
That'd be 1,362,000. 1.4 would be a slight increase.
Mhm.
So 1.4 is a slight increase.
Can I just put one other option on the table as I'm watching this, is that because that's not a huge amount, one of the options that was put on the table about how to get to make up your deficit here in order to fund that extra school was to shave a percentage off of the grants that you decided to give, and find that right percentage. It would be, my guess, based on what Mega calculated, between 1% and 1.5%. Less than what you just allocated for each grantee would likely make up your deficit. So I mean, there's just alternate ways you might approach it, rather than going through each one and trying to figure out what you want to shave off of each one to do that, or whether you want to use a balance, you could do that approach. I mean, staff could figure out what the percentage is, but that's the range that's reasonable.
If we were to do that, I would be reluctant to shave any percentage off the early childhood mental health consultation, considering that is the only one funded in that area, and that we're low in terms of meeting our goal for funding mental health consultation.
You don't have to take the option, I just thought I'd put it on the table.
I got it.
So Julie, which one is that, which of the Morrison,
The first one.
the EC 11?
It's 11, yeah.
Okay, so while that is a large grant, if we held that harmless, then, I mean, it's a probably non-material change to finding the level reduction for all the rest of the grants, which I think is probably the only thing we can do without getting into serious brain damage and going back over all the grants.
Could we also, is it also an option to hold it at the end, since we do still have this $242,000 that we have on hold?
You could make the decision at the end instead and leave it as a negative balance for now if you want.
Yeah,
Why don't we do that?
yeah, I think that's the best option.
Okay, so we'll just carry it forward as a negative balance. So did we vote to approve Albina at 1.4 million, or did we get a motion?
I motion that we approve Albina 1.4 million.
Okay.
Second.
Second. Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we're carrying over about $128,000 deficit, or $129,000 to be reconciled at the end of the day here.
Oh, I see, yeah.
So our next category now is foster care.
Correct. Okay, in foster care, John has a spreadsheet set up, just like the early childhood spreadsheet. The total amount available in this funding area is $3,945,729. Just would like to note that one of you has left a balance of about $260,000 in this program area and used it in the child abuse prevention and intervention program area, and one left a balance of about $45,000 and didn't specify a use for that. So we'll go through the list in agreement order, highest score, like we did in early childhood. So the first program up is the Janus Insights ECHO program. All 5 of you agreed to funding this program at $475,000. And this is broken between the strategies 60% transition and 40% permanency. I'll
Great
have the
looking
same.
program, and I would move to fund it at 475 on the 60-40 split mentioned.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, moved and seconded for Janus Insights Echo. $475,000 over 3 years. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so Janus Insights Echo is approved.
Okay. Next on the list is New Avenues for Youth, Avenues to College. And it's my understanding through discussions with Mitch that you,
Yeah, I'm on the board, so I'm going to abstain on
Okay.
a formal vote on this one.
Okay.
okay. So the other 4 agreed to fund this program with an average amount of $400,000 and a range of $300,000 to $450,000, with 2 of you interested in funding at $450,000, 1 at $400,000, and 1 at $300,000.
So I recommended funding at a lower level because it's a new program, and I feel that the needs in both foster care and child abuse prevention are so great, and that many of the existing recipients of Levy funds had seen reductions in past years and had small reductions recommended in this year. So I think it's a great proposal and a great program, but wanted to preserve some funding for existing programs.
So you're recommending $300,000 in over 3 years? Okay. Is that a motion or discussion?
I guess it's
Okay.
discussion. I don't know where all of you are.
Okay.
I would move to make that grant $350,000 over 3 years.
I'll second it.
Okay, so moved and seconded, $350,000 over 3 years. Still less than where 2 of us are, so any further discussion? Okay, all in favor of $350,000 for 3 years for New Avenues for Youth, College, Avenues to College program, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that
And
is,
that's 100% academic support.
yes, 100% academic support. We're all lined up there.
Yep, everyone had that one. Okay, next is Youth Rights and Justice, the School Works program. All 5 of you are interested in funding that application. The average amount of $520,000 with a range of $500,000 to $525,000, with 4 of you at $525,000 and 1 at $500,000. And that is all academic support as well.
Mhm.
I move that we fund Youth Rights and Justice at $525,000.
Okay, so moved at $525,000.
Second.
Second, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, Youth Rights and Justice School Works approved. $525,000 over 3 years.
Okay, the next one is SEI's foster care program. All 5 of you are interested in funding this program. The average amount of $645,000 with a range of $625,000 to $650,000, with 4 of you at $650,000, 1 at $625,000, and this is an even split between academic support and transition support, 50-50. So it was 4 of you at 650, 1 at 625. The average is 645.
I think the average looks good to me, although I was dragging the average down a little bit, so.
Second?
Second that, 645,000 over 3 years? Okay. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, so SEI foster care program, 645,000 over 3 years.
Okay, and next is NAEA's foster care program. Again, all 5 of you are interested in funding this program at an average amount of $633,309, with a larger range of $300,000 to $835,000. And strategy split is 40 transition support and 60 permanency.
I move that we fund this at the 633,309 with the 40-60 split.
Okay.
I recommended funding this at the current service level, which is $835, and I just want to explain my reasoning there. Native American youth are wildly overrepresented in the foster care system, and I feel that it's really important to keep that in mind in these decisions. That there are just some areas where things are worse, and felt that that called for at least the current level, which was a cut from before as well. So.
Okay,
So,
we have a motion.
I thought, did Serena make a motion? I
Made
thought
a
she
motion.
did, for at the average, I'll second the motion,
But-
at the average, 633.
Are we going back to revisit though?
No, I mean, now we got discussion, I'm just saying, just to clean
Yeah,
that
so
up.
it's been seconded and moved and seconded that we fund this at the average of 633,000 over 3 years. Now we can have discussion on Chair Madrigal's perspective as well as ours. Any others?
Well, I agree with Chair Madrigal. I think if you look at the data, the numbers speaks for themselves, and our Native American youth are overrepresented in the foster care system. So it would make sense to, if they're currently being funded at 835, I would hate to drop their funding down, especially with, and their application was high scoring, it says as well.
Is that their current funding level, 835?
Let's double check.
Annually, what that would be, it would be 200 and,
See, hang on a second. Yeah, there.
$835.
835 is the current amount.
what was it?
835. And my understanding of the proposal is that there are some changes to the current model.
Right, and you guys, staff expressed concern about historical utilization and some other issues
Right,
to date.
in participation, that's
Yeah.
correct. So the staff recommended level of funding was $685,729, considering changes in the program model as well as past utilization in participation.
When you say changes in program model, changes in program model that were of concern?
Not of
Just that,
concern,
or- oh.
just a shift. One of the things was, in the current grant, there are 4 hours of service per week for all the children and youth served. In the model that's been proposed, the 4 hours a week would be just for the older youth, not younger youth. Do you have I don't remember where that cut is, but the teenage, it's more of a focus, my understanding, on transition age youth. And so the younger youth would be receiving a goal of 2 hours a week versus 4 hours a week. So lesser amount of service than in the past or currently. So 0 to 14-year-olds would receive 2 hours, it wasn't per week, it was per month. And older youth would receive 4 hours per month.
Okay, so I believe we had a motion and seconded for the average amount.
Can I ask a question? Did you ask, I mean, because of that concern, was there any more in-depth conversation regarding that?
Given the timeframes, we were not able to go and ask any of the applicants for further information beyond what they submitted in the applications.
That concerns me. I understand the time constraints. But again, I feel like if there's an issue with the structure of it, but they're currently receiving funding and providing services, that's something that could be discussed and worked out. And I remain concerned about cutting funding again for this population. I think that this is a really tough population to reach. And it's hard to say without a discussion whether that's because of the program structure or because of the population or so. I guess I remain concerned.
Then it still leaves a question mark.
Right. I mean, they are question marks. I mean, this is the case with every application that we've reviewed. I would say, at least the ones I reviewed, I would have a question in each one of those, and I agree that contract negotiations are the time when we can get some things answered and set up the parameters of what's required in the contract based on the funding that is ultimately decided. And in my recommendations, I provided funding amounts that seemed most reasonable to me based on all the information that I had to work with. And I completely appreciate if higher or lower amounts are decided by the committee.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second for $633,000 over 3 years. If there's any further discussion, we'll take a vote on that and go from there. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, so it does pass then at $633,309 for NAIA foster care program.
And John, did you have the split on that, 40, 60? Okay. The next application that you all are interested in funding is the Friends of the Children. The average was $429,946 with a range of $386,000 to $464,000. And it looks like two of you indicated $450,000, one at $464,000, one at $400,000, and one at $385,729, and 100% for academic support.
I move that we go with the average, in this case, of the $429,946.
I think the average is 516.
There was an updated, you should have an updated version. There was a calculation error in the, or error in the formula.
Okay. So what was the number, Julie, that you?
429,946.
Okay, moved and second, or moved at 429,946. Moved and seconded. Okay. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, and that was, now you got me all lost here. That was
The children.
That was Friends of the Children.
Friends of the Children. Okay.
Okay, next is Impact Northwest Safe and Together. All five of you are interested in funding this program. Average amount of $616,146 with a range of $500,000 to $710,000. Two of you interested at the $710,000 level. One at $600,000, one at $567,729, and one at $500,000.
I move that we fund the average
A second.
And
of 616.
616. How come I don't have this? I guess,
Is that on that corrected?
Oh.
616,146?
okay, Impact Northwest, 616.
Or
146. Okay.
Impact Northwest?
Okay, that was the motion. Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I moved it. So someone else has to second it.
It was a second.
It was a second.
Okay, it's been moved
You can just
and,
take charge and do both, and it'll make it a lot more efficient.
okay, it's been moved and seconded. For 616, 146, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, and the split on this one, some of you have the 100% to permanency. Let's see, 3 of you have 100% to permanency, which was staff recommendation, and 2 have 10% to academic support, 90% permanency, which was what the applicant had indicated in their proposal. Staff had recommended this 100% permanency because that is the primary focus of the programming. So do you have a preference on which one to use for these
I
purposes?
move that we allocate the full amount to permanency.
Second.
Second, okay. Moved and seconded, 100% goes to permanency for foster kids. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, the next one on the list is Boys and Girls Aid, the permanency proposal, FC2. 3 of 5 of you are interested in funding this at $150,000. And it's 100% to the permanency.
I'm just reminding you to check the balance because you're getting down there now.
Thank you. Let's see, the balance is 271 something.
328.
I recommend that we, given the balance that we have remaining, which is more generous than it looked like was going to be earlier, that we allocate $200,000 to Boys and Girls Aid permanency.
Can we talk about that? I would suggest that we fund them at the 150 and move and hold the remaining because since we have so many things, a couple of things that we have on hold right now until we make some other decisions.
I think I'm certainly willing to look at going higher to 200,000, but I think I'd like to wait until I'd like to look at everything in terms of the collective ending balance. So I'm comfortable for now funding them at 150,000.
Can you give us a running total? If we do 150 and we,
We have one.
our running total going into our last child abuse and prevention would mean what?
Of the balance. that
What
you-
would we carry in if we allocate 150?
We'd carry the 121,
21,
328.
328
And-
would be your
and-
balance.
Their money
And you
around.
have a negative balance to
That's
early
what I mean,
childhood
so
of
that's what I'm asking
128.
for.
Yeah,
What
I
what
would
is
agree.
our,
Net.
what's our running net, yeah?
It'd be about 7,000
It'd
down
be
still.
about-
Yeah, so very close. Oh.
Yeah.
But there is still a $242,000
142
Yeah.
still
Still
as
that
well.
balance, yes.
surplus that we need to talk about as
Right.
well. at
Right.
the end. Okay,
Just mean in terms
so
of what you allocated so far.
I don't think we have a motion here on the floor. I will move $150,000 for Boys and Girls Aid permanency planning
A second.
over 3 years. Okay. Moved and seconded. Discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Okay, there was one other program in this funding area. I don't know if you want to consider it at this point, where 2 of 5 were interested in funding. What's 123, which is not enough for 121, which is not enough for a minimum grant.
You can see on the right there, that little column of numbers I just put up. The 242 is the initial surplus from after school. The negative 128 is the overallocation in early childhood. The 121, 328 is the balance in this category. So the net there is the 234, 867.
Well, I would suggest, there were only 2 out of 5 of us were suggesting funding for this last program.
Correct.
I'm ready to go to the next category if we
Okay.
can come back.
We're ready to move on.
Okay.
Can we take a brief 5-minute break? I think someone needs to chat with Dan for a few minutes before we move on to child abuse.
Okay. We'll take a 5-minute break. It's 2:30. Oh, I got my iPhone right here. It's 2:30 right now. We'll reconvene at 2:35, 2:36. State for the record that the reason I took a break was because I had to discuss other council business, nothing to do with children's levy business. Okay, so let's resume, and we're on now to child abuse prevention and intervention. and Lisa.
Okay. In this funding area, the total amount available is $6,247,405. Just as a note, one of you in doing your slate had transferred money from both foster care and after school, and another had transferred money from after school in creating your slate of preferences. Also, before we start the discussion in this area, I wanted to provide an update to the audience regarding additional options for allocation committee consideration that have been communicated since the last meeting on May 19th. At the May 19th meeting, testimony expressing concern that the staff list of programs recommended for funding did not include any culturally specific programs for African Americans. Staff shares the concern about the lack of culturally specific child abuse prevention and intervention services for African American families, a population overrepresented in the child welfare system. Staff has raised this issue in annual data reports, which show that a smaller percentage of African American and Native American children are served in levy-funded child abuse prevention and intervention programs, as compared to the percentage of these populations in foster care. Staff did not recommend funding the only applicant in the child abuse prevention and intervention program area proposing to provide culturally specific services for African Americans because the program was focused on parent involvement in education success rather than on child abuse prevention. Because of the ongoing concern regarding this gap in services, staff felt compelled to offer some additional options for the committee to consider. Option A is to set aside some of the funding in this program area to fund culturally specific child abuse prevention and intervention services for African Americans and run a separate funding process to award the funds. Option B would be to award conditional funding to SEI, the applicant that proposed culturally specific services for African Americans, to provide culturally specific services that align with the best practice standards in child abuse prevention and intervention. Exercising either of these options would allow the levy to address an existing service gap now, rather than waiting until the next levy funding process. All of the committee members are in favor of funding culturally specific services for African Americans. So we'll start this discussion in this program area to decide an amount of funding for culturally specific services for African American children and families, and to choose which option, option A, a new RFI, or option B, conditional award for SEI.
So determine the amount we want to fund first, and then the process.
Sure. So like I said, 5 of 5 are in agreement to fund culturally specific services. The average amount of funding is $379,443, with a range of $107,000 to $617,000. And again, it's a range. No one has the same dollar amount. $107,405, $350,000, $372,405, $450,000, and $617,405.
Just one quick note to remind yourselves that 150 is the minimum grant for 3 years, so it cannot be lower than that.
Oh, right. I guess I would be willing to move $350,000 for culturally specific child abuse prevention intervention services.
Second.
Moved and seconded, $350,000. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. So we've determined the amount, and now the choice is to do a new RFI for this, or to award it to self-enhancement.
Right.
With the proviso that their original proposal missed the mark, I guess, is in our hands.
To have child abuse prevention standards, best practice standards implemented within the program design.
Okay.
And 3 of 5 of you are interested in a new RFI, and 2 of 5 are interested in a conditional award for SEI.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
As you were doing your research, did you research whether there were other organizations, culturally specific organizations, that do this child abuse prevention with African American children and one that shows outcomes and that works, and being honest about it?
This is a new recommendation, right, and a new option. And so I would think that if the option was to go with a new RFI, we would need to understand who are the organizations that we need to really encourage to be applying for these. This was an open process. If there were other organizations interested in applying for child abuse prevention resources, there was nothing to prevent them from applying. There was one other culturally specific organization that had asked to be considered in 3 of the funding areas, one of which was child abuse prevention, and correct me if I'm wrong, they did not meet the minimum score in one of the sections.
Correct.
So we're not able to be considered or listed on recommended list, on staff recommendations.
I think there's, go ahead, Marcia. I think there's value in putting out a new RFI and in giving the opportunity for organizations. I mean, we don't know exactly how this will work out, but it's potentially, and with this amount of money, there could even be 2 successful options that we could fund. So I think that going back and reissuing the RFI is a win-win for everyone, and it could be that SEI will be the only applicant, and if that were to be the case, we would certainly want to work with that organization, but there may be others, or there may be more than one.
Well, I guess my thing is, why would we go back out if they didn't apply the first time? I mean, and why make people do it all over again? Because everybody had the same option of applying the first time, and they didn't apply. I mean, if they were out there and they could apply, that was the time to apply.
I have a little discomfort with going out for an RFI just because, while I understand the concerns on the application from SEI, it was high scoring. It was, there was let's see, it was like 90 and 91. And they're an organization that the Levy has worked with before. And so I'm feeling some discomfort there and feel like, this is a tough process, and I think that we have had to, and staff has had to, keep things pretty siloed and not been able to engage a lot with the providers. But at the same time, I think it has also kind of limited our choices here, and there could have potentially been some discussion with SEI before we got to this point, but I understand that in this process that there's not time for that, but it leaves me feeling a little uncomfortable talking about going out when they're high scoring. They have been, we want to ask them to do something different, but they have a proven track record with the Levy. So.
Other thoughts, discussion?
I agree with about half of what, they're absolutely great program. I assume we would get them. I guess I feel some discomfort in that we applied the same standards to this proposal and it didn't make it, and we treated a lot of other programs exactly the same way. And for, I guess, that reason, it feels like we ought to go back out, not just because we know SEI is probably going to get the work and that'll be great and we'll all have smiles on our face, but because if we change the rules for SEI, then do we have to go back and look at all the other programs that were scored high but not recommended by staff for exactly the same reason?
I think we're kind of coming from the same place, except I guess I see that in most places in all categories we funded the high scoring applications only.
And in this one we didn't.
And in this one we didn't. And so I feel like I have been a participant in the scoring and the evaluation process in the past as a volunteer, and I know how rigorous that is. And so, what did the reviewers miss? How could they have missed it? such a big thing if it was really not a great application.
It just seems contradictory. If you scored the application high, but then they don't make it. When other high-scoring applications or some folks who scored really much, much lower than what they scored made it. I mean, that's just inconsistent.
Well,
in the
can
scoring.
we just keep in mind, though, that I just want to point out that if staff didn't recommend a high-scoring application, it was most often because we felt it didn't fit with the strategy.
Right.
So there were
And
other
that's what this
situations
was.
where that was exactly the case, or where people applied for a strategy and staff recommended against it for some reason. So that was the reason that it was not recommended. It wasn't some other reason. So I just want to keep that on the table. That's why that recommendation was made.
Well, since there's two that favor awarding it to SEI with the provision that it be reworked to reflect best practice, and I think there's two in favor of doing a new request for information, and I think I'm going to join that call for a new request for information. I think based upon the point that the proposal missed the strategy, didn't fit the strategy. I feel confident SEI and perhaps other organizations can reapply and meet our strategy in a more tailored focus with what we're looking for in child abuse prevention and intervention. So I guess I would make the motion to issue a new RFI in the amount of $350,000 over 3 years for culturally specific child abuse prevention and intervention services.
Second.
Second, okay.
Culturally specific for African-American
For
children
African
and
American,
families.
right. Any further discussion
So we already voted to set aside the funds, and now this is
Yes.
just on the funding.
on the process?
On the
right.
process.
Okay.
Okay.
All in favor, say aye. Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. The motion passes.
Okay, so now we'll move into the list where there's most agreement on applications. First one is IRCO, Refugee and Immigrant Prevention Intervention Services. All 5 of you are interested in funding this program at $450,000. The strategy is 100% parenting.
Okay, not much discussion here. Entertain a motion?
I move that we fund IRCO, $450,000 for parenting.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Okay.
IRCO is funded.
Janice Seeds program is next. All 5 of you are interested in funding this program, the average amount of $510,000 with a range of $450,000 to $525,000, with 4 of you at $525,000.
I move that we fund the average of $510,000.
I second.
Okay, moved and seconded to fund at $510,000 over 3 years. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Janice Seeds is approved.
Next is Pathfinders Center for Family Success. All 5 of you are interested in funding this program at an average amount of $690,000 with a range of $525,000 to $750,000. Looks like 3 of you at $750,000, 1 at $675,000, 1 at $525,000, and this is 100% parenting.
Quite a bit of variation amongst the
Yes.
5 of us on this one for the funding amount.
Yes, 3 at $750,
Oh, there were 3 at 750.
1 at $675, and 1 at $525.
Oh, okay.
So could we get behind the average as a group, or do we want to advocate for more than
Oh,
that?
I move that we do the average.
I support the average.
Okay.
You okay with that, Julie?
Okay, moved and seconded to fund the average of $690,000 over 3 years. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, Pathfinders is approved.
Next is NAIA, Child Abuse Prevention and Intervention. All 5 of you are interested in funding this at an average of $390,000, a range of $350,000 to $450,000, with 3 at $350,000 and 2 at $450,000. And this is 100% parenting.
I move that we fund it at the higher amount, about $450,000.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to fund NAIA Child Abuse Prevention and Intervention at $450,000 over 3 years. Discussion?
I had a question. Could staff remind us, I know there were multiple proposals from NAIA, and I may be confused, but was this one that might have had reflected dollar amounts for the curriculum being used, or was that in another area?
That's correct. This, the funding level that was recommended by staff was based on what the organization that has this program model suggests or says that it costs per family to deliver the service. And so I calculated based on the number that were projected to be served by the dollar amount per family to be served, provided by the Safe Kids. Safe, getting the name right now, it's a new program.
Yes,
Model.
got it right here.
I'm not Nara.
Sorry,
no.
Lisa. Contract.
Safe Care, sorry.
And that amount that the staff recommended amount was?
The staff recommended amount was $350,000.
Okay, so it was moved and seconded for $450,000 over 3 years, and there's no further discussion. I'll ask all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it does pass. $450,000 for NAIA Child Abuse Prevention Intervention.
Okay, the next one is Bradley Engel Family Advocacy Project. All 5 are interested in funding this at an average amount of $240,000 with a range of $200,000 to $250,000, with 4 people interested in $250,000 and 1 at $200,000.
I move that we fund it at the average amount, $240,000.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, $240,000 over 3 years for Bradley Engel Family Advocacy Project. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye? Okay, it passes.
Okay, next is Legacy Emmanuel Cares. All 5 of you are interested in funding this. The average amount is $560,000 with a range of $400,000 to $1 million. 3 interested at $400,000, 1 at $600,000, and 1 at $1 million.
I have a question. Can you please tell us what we have been funding CARES for, the amount, and I assume there's also some programmatic difference too, but what has been the history of levy dollars?
Sure. The current amount is about $240,000 a year, or would equate to $720,000 for 3-year period. We've been funding the urgent assessments at CARES. This time would be assessments at CARES, in addition to a new component of therapeutic services for children who have been determined to be victims of child abuse and neglect. The staff recommendation was to fund $400,000 for the therapeutic intervention piece of this, because it was staff's opinion that the assessment, a one-time service, didn't necessarily fit the intention of intervention. There can be differing opinions, as you heard testimony last time. That's been excellent service. There's not been any issues in that regard.
I guess I would like to float a proposal here. I won't make it into a motion. I'll float it first, but I would like to suggest that we fund them at the average amount of $560,000, but that extra $160,000 above the staff recommended $400,000 for the therapeutic be used for the child abuse assessments. I think that's just important work that has to be done, and it is, to me, it is part of prevention, very much part of prevention, but it is also very much part of treatment. So just floating that idea for.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make that into a motion then. All right. Whoops.
So
Too soon.
moved.
Okay, moved?
Second.
Second, okay. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And
And
that was
staff, you understood?
100% therapeutic. Oh,
You understood?
of course. Uh-huh.
Okay, great. Okay,
The next is Metropolitan Family Services, Nurturing Parenting. All 5 are interested in funding this. The average amount is $290,000, the range of $250,000 to $300,000. 4 people interested at $300,000, 1 at $250,000, and this is 100% parenting.
I move that we fund it at the $290,000, the average.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to fund at $290,000 over 3 years. Is there further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay. Metropolitan Family Services, Nurturing Parenting is funded.
Next is Catholic Charities Parent-Child Involvement Project. All 5 are interested in funding this program. The average amount is $460,000 with a range of $400,000 to $500,000. Let's see, 1 at $500,000, 2 at $475,000, 1 at $450,000, and 1 at $400,000. And this is split between parenting and therapeutic intervention, 64% parenting, 36% therapeutic intervention.
I move that we fund Catholic Charities at $460,000 with the split that's noted.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded, $460,000, 64% parenting, 36% therapeutic intervention. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's Catholic Charities is funded.
Next is LifeWorks Northwest Children's Relief Nursery. All 5 are interested in funding this. The average amount is $1,175,000 with a range of $925,000 to $1.35 million. We have 1 at $1.35 million, 1 at 1.3, 1 at 1.1, 1 at 1.2, 1.1, and 1 at 925. And there's need to be some discussion about the split, but probably the amount first. The average was $1,175,000.
What is their current funding?
Their current funding is $434,543 times 3, John?
1.3?
1.3? 1.3, and that includes the a combination. They're proposing to do child abuse, foster care, and their east location. Currently, we have 3 grants, so that's their total amount that they have right now. Between 3 grants, they're proposing all in one this time.
I'd be interested in keeping them around 1.3 at least.
So I move that we fund LifeWorks Northwest for this program at $431,250. 100% of it is for parenting.
What was that?
No,
I guess
you
I
got the
kinda
wrong,
missed
Wait,
you're one down.
which one are you?
You've
Next
one down.
I did.
Yeah, we're doing
LifeWorks
The Children's Relief
Children's
Nursery.
Relief Nursery.
Yes. Okay.
I was suggesting
Okay.
1.3 million for over 3 years. But I didn't make that a motion. I'm just,
I motion that we fund them at the average of 1.175.
okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to fund LifeWorks Children's Relief Nursery at $175,000 over 3 years. Further discussion? I think I will vote against the motion and then offer a motion to fund it at 1.3 million. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No? Okay, the motion's defeated. I will now move to award LifeWorks Family Relief Nursery 1.3 million over 3 years.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay. So it is approved.
Okay, and
1.3.
then we need to talk about the percentage breakdown.
Oh, yeah.
3 of you suggested parenting at 25% and therapeutic intervention at 75%, and 2, 90% parenting, 10% therapeutic intervention. Staff had recommended the 25% parenting, 75% split, and the applicant had the 90% parenting, 10% split. The primary service that's offered is the therapeutic classrooms for children, which would not fit under the parenting strategy, but is therapeutic for children.
I'd
And
move
that's
to
the
follow staff's recommendation.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded that 75%, is that right?
25, 75,
25
25 parenting,
parent.
75 therapeutic.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Approved, and then,
Next is LifeWorks Northwest Family and Community Alliance. 4 of 5 of you are interested in funding this proposal. The average amount of $431,250 with a range of $350,000 to $475,000. Let's see, 1 at $475,000, 2 at $450,000, and 1 at $350,000. And this is 100% parenting.
I'll repeat my earlier motion when I was on the wrong line. $431,250, and it's 100% for parenting.
Second.
okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, LifeWorks Northwest Family and Community Alliance is funded.
Where are we getting on our balance, John?
You can
500?
see at the
I
top
can't
is
see.
516, on the right is the net balance between all areas, which is at 751, maybe I'll highlight that.
Okay.
And
All right.
keeping in mind that the next set of ones that Lisa's going to bring up, there are 4 out of 5 for each of them.
Correct.
So just,
Okay, so there are 4, let's see, next is Volunteers of America Home Free.
Lisa, I'm sorry, before you go, could I just get clear on that? So we have cleaned up, we've allocated for the culturally specific, we've addressed the carryover, so we have no other items we have to account for other than, did we have anything we said we wanted to come back to in the earlier categories?
I don't think so.
You just have that sort of negative balance in early childhood, but it's still accounted for in the unspent that you've done so far,
Right.
so your net balance is 751, right?
that you have to work
That
with.
you have to work with.
So we can spend 751 and then not say, oh, and then we have to. we're-
That's correct. If
Correct.
you,
Okay.
if you use that balance now, you know, the 751, then you will have spent the carryover that you had from after school, right? And you will have made up also your negative balance in early childhood. Does that make sense?
Right, we didn't,
Okay.
so we don't have to go back.
You don't have
and
to go
Yes.
back.
Shave by a
Yes.
percentage.
You
Okay,
would
so
not
the-
have to go
The
back.
difference would be, we'd be allocating, we're going to allocate, if we do that, are we allocating less to child abuse and prevention than we had originally bucketed and more to early childhood?
Slightly.
No, because your
You have a balance
your
from the
carryover from after
still.
school will apportion out into child abuse.
It would be like a split, pretty much.
Yeah.
Just
It'd be
depends
a
how you want to
split
look at it.
Between the two.
Taking it from somewhere, so that's.
You took it from after school.
See on the right, on the sheet, after school, there was 242 not spent. EC was overspent,
Overspent.
Yeah,
but FC was underspent.
yeah.
Currently, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for that side.
No, that's
I just
not,
wanted to
that's
get clear on
good,
that.
good questions, good questions. Okay,
So at this point, there are 3 remaining, and all 3, 4 out of 5, and it looks like the total, what can I do, is about $1 million for the remaining 3. If you just looked at their averages.
right. Well, let's
So
go through
these
them.
are in score order.
Yeah.
So the next one is Volunteers of America Home Free. 4 of 5 are interested in funding this at an average of $307,500 with a range of $280,000 to $390,000. 3 at $280,000, 1 at $390,000, and we'll need to talk about the percentage to strategies as well. But
I propose that we fund the Home Free program at $150,000 level.
Moved.
I will make that a motion.
I'd like to have some discussion. This is a program where kids go while their parents are when they're out of this program. And this program is very important, I think, to the community and to women that are going through abuse, as well as women, as well as kids, because it's a child care program, and that's one of the biggest issues, that there's no child care available when they're going through this. And this has been a collaboration of several organizations that have come together in this one site to do this. So I say that we fund it at the average, the 3075.
I had a motion on the floor.
Julie made a motion.
Okay, so there's a motion to fund at 150. Is there a second? Okay, the motion dies.
And I motion that we fund it at 3075.
Okay, moved. I'll second that. Any further discussion?
I just wanted to note that it's a wonderful program, and when I visited it, I certainly, I can see a huge need for it. I'm just concerned that it doesn't fit exactly the strategies and our intention that Children's Levy funding should go to programs where there is a deeper, more of a sustained relationship. And this service is one it's important, but it's a drop-in, often used once, probably in most occasions used once, and it's needed. But I just wanted to go back to what the intention was for investing Children's Levy dollars around in organizations where there's a relationship building over time, I believe is what the language was. So I just wanted to make that note.
There's a difference. They drop in once every time their parents are there having work done and counseling and a lot of different other things. So it's not just a one-time drop and they can't ever come back. They can drop in there while their parents are involved in some other things, or if they're getting counseling or something like that. I think that's where not understanding what the one-time drop is coming from.
Well, I think it's more of a child care setting than, and it's a good program, absolutely a good program. I just questioned how it fit with our overall strategies.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, it's been moved and seconded to fund VOA Home Free at $307,500 over 3 years. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
So we need some clarification on the strategy here, and my understanding from members who were interested in funding this was that the interest was in the child care portion of their proposal. Is that a correct understanding?
Yes. Yes.
And the applicant had indicated that this strategy was 100% therapeutic intervention, considering all of the components that they proposed. Some of you have it as therapeutic intervention and some as parenting. Staff would suggest that it's more closely linked to parenting because it allows the parent to access services and supports that can help them in their role as a parent. So which strategy would you like to fund this under?
I'm comfortable taking your recommendation if that's how you read this.
Well, as Julie said, it's a tough fit in either one, but I would move that we put it in parenting.
I'll second that. Okay, all in favor, say putting it in parenting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Well, wait.
Okay.
Thank you.
443.
There's a balance of 443,522 available for the levy at this point. And we have 2 proposals left. One is Salvation Army Parent-Child Involvement Project. 4 of you are interested in funding this, the average amount of $287,500 with a range of $250,000 to $325,000. 2 at $250,000 and 2 at $325,000, and it's 100% parenting.
If we fund this at the average amount, will there still be funds available, at least $150,000 for one more allocation?
If you
I
put
don't-
287
I
in,
don't
what do you get, John?
287 from 443.
287,
Yeah, if you take 287,500.
leave 156.
Okay,
You can see it there.
all right. Then I would move that we fund this at the average amount, which is $287,500, and it's 100% for parenting.
Okay, moved and seconded of $287,500 for Salvation Army Parent-Child Involvement Project, 100% parenting. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, I'm looking at these last two kind of bunched, and I kind of felt like staff had it about right in terms of dollars recommended, and it's about a 2-to-1 ratio. So I guess I'm not uncomfortable with the motion, but I guess I'd be more in favor of splitting the dollars left between the 2-to-1 for VOA, Family Relief Nursery, to everyone for Salvation Army parent-child involvement. And they end up basically about, in terms of what their ask was and what we give them, about the same.
Okay,
I agree.
okay.
So what's,
So Mitch, can you walk us
Say
through
the
that?
dollar amounts.
The number, the
So-
dollar amounts?
Yeah, I mean, you guys have to figure out what the math is, but taking the money left, split it roughly equivalent to the difference. VOA is about twice as we were going to allocate the average was 547 for VOA. The average for Salvation Army was 287. So rough justice, it's about 2-to-1.
Can I ask staff a question? Because I feel like, the order that we've taken these in has mattered in that now we're down at the end and giving a little more scrutiny and pinching pennies a little bit more than we did in our first round. What could, if we did a 1% across the board, across all the, everything that we've allocated so far, can we do that to balance at the end and see where we are?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question, yes, we can do that. And I guess I would also point out that we could go back to the early childhood and do a 1% across the board there, and that would free up 120,000 or 100.
Yeah, I mean, it's
gonna be a little bit more than
withholding harmless, at least one of them, I'm not sure how I hadn't held that, when I had looked at that math originally, I hadn't held any in that way harmless, so we have to go back and look at how it pencils out, but.
I was just thinking it might be less painful if all levy recipients got a 1% rather than focusing on just early childhood and then balancing that way. Just a suggestion.
And John, did you do a calculation? Is that putting
gonna take a
you
few
on the
minutes.
spot too much?
Should we sing the Jeopardy song, please?
Levy-wide would take
Yes.
a little bit. EC I looked at briefly.
Are you talking about levy-wide, meaning the ones that were decided on Friday as well?
That would take-
That's going to net you quite a bit,
It's more
right?
than you
'Cause
need.
that's basically
Or
every
0.5%.
single bit that's of the $30+ million that we're allocating,
So half a
except for
percent, whatever
the
it
last
takes.
420,000 and taking it out. Does that make sense? So
So I guess my point is, can we figure out a way to spread it out, spread out the.
And may I ask what your goal is?
Well, I'm concerned that the only reason that we're considering drastically reducing these last two allocations is because they happen to be at the end of the process, and not because of, any other reason.
I would agree, I believe, understand that. At the same time, I think we just did the same thing in foster care where we backed away from a larger amount for boys and girls aid because we would wait to see what we did here. And so they were the last in that category.
Well, that wasn't the
So there's
reason why
always
the allocation averaged out for Boys and Girls Aid, just at 150. So we went with what the average allocation was. We didn't, that's what their average allocation was that we have on our sheets. So we didn't nickel and
I think
dime
I
that
did
much.
say I was willing to look at, I did
wanted
say
to go
I
back
wanted
to
to look
that.
at increasing Boys and Girls Aid to 200,000, depending where we ended up. And I'd
right.
still be interested in that under the scenario that Chair Madrigal suggested, or whether we freed up 120,000 from a 1% early childhood reduction.
Yeah, because it does.
Those seem to be two options to generate a little more ending fund balance, or we can just stick with the ending fund balance we have and deal with these last two proposals. I'm sympathetic to trying to free up a little more ending balance.
I move that we go at Chair Madrigal's half of cent, however we get there, so we don't feel like we're giving kibbles and bits to the last two just because they had to be the last two on the list. I don't think that's fair, and it just doesn't feel good either.
Would you support going up to 200,000 for Boys and Girls Aid in that same
Yes.
motion?
Well, let's try to figure out how much money we want to free up, and then we could try to figure out how to get there, what percentage that would be.
You want to
That
take
probably
a,
I probably need to take a few minute break just
Okay,
to
let's
make sure we
take
have the math
another-
right.
okay, it's
That-
317, we'll come back at
Wait,
322.
before you break, how much money are you looking for? Would you like to be
Right.
able to fund the average amounts of the last two? So the average funding amount for the last two was 287,500 and 547,453. Those were the two average amounts. I heard Mitch say something about, if you were trying to get to that, to fund to that. Is that where people are mostly trying to get?
Yes,
And then an additional for Boys and Girls Aid, I heard, yes?
Yeah.
271.
To 271?
Well, what's on top of the, so it'd be like
So 50,000.
So on top of the 150.
50,000 more.
121.
Okay,
This is what we need.
okay. All right, then let's break for 5 and let's see if we
Okay,
can
let's
get the
take a
math.
5-minute break.
Tell me the numbers.
Okay.
Okay, so at are theoretically talking about giving those final applicants, you are about $441,000 in the red. However, if you take Chair Madrigal's suggestion of reducing every single allocation you've made, it's going to be probably less than 0.5% for everybody to get to that number. I would include everyone, I
That would
think.
include, okay.
Every
hunger
single-
relief,
All of them.
mentoring, all of it.
All of them. I
Except
think
those with that would go below 150,000.
excuse me, right, sorry.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so holding harmless anything that's already at the minimum grant amount.
which is just
Which will-
one program, John's saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one of the issues I have is that it doesn't fall equally. The larger awards we give are much more able in real life to absorb a 0.5% decrease than these smaller grants we give. It's more impactful to the smaller programs, smaller grants, and that's why I have a real concern about spreading it over all the programs. The math works out convenient better, that's for sure, and it's a lot easier to kind of figure your way through it, but and plus our buckets aren't equal. I mean, we have, our largest bucket is 10 million, and our smallest is 2.6. And, if all of our buckets were 10 million bucks and we were talking about knocking off 0.5%, it's a no-brainer for me. But when you get down to some of those smaller buckets, hunger relief, foster care, and mentoring, just doesn't, I don't know why, it's harder for me to get comfortable with it.
We did a graduated across the board, so that awards of, I'm just throwing this out as a threshold, awards under 400,000 over 3 years would be an across the board of 0.25%, and then awards over 400,000 over 3 years would be 0.5%.
Well, we don't even know if it's exactly 0.5. We're trying, I guess what our suggestion is to,
I guess I'm just trying to sound out
sure.
Mitch, if that's something he'd be more comfortable with, or is you just want to resist the across the board approach?
Just to be, yeah, I mean, I guess I would be comfortable splitting what we have left between these last two programs on the ratio that I talked about. I guess I'd be more comfortable doing that than going back and revisiting the other categories.
Okay. Okay, well, I think we have sort of the range of options here, and I'd be looking for a motion to, unless there's further questions. Staff did say that if we did a 0.5% across the board, that would,
It'd be less than half, I think.
it could be less, so.
We're adding up the total right now.
We didn't really bring the materials
Well, I
to
suppose
calculate
we-
it, so I'm a little nervous about giving a number because I'm afraid that if I went back and checked, I might.
I
give the
suppose
wrong
we
number.
could say we could leave it to staff
These are
to,
all after school.
as long as the across the board is less than 0.5%, to come back to us and say that's what the final number is in order to balance the funding priorities.
Got it, okay.
Seems like they're almost done calculating.
Okay.
Add all that up. So
Yeah, you can see the number there. It's small.
it's 0.01%, no, less, it's 0.01%.
No, it's 1.3%.
1.3%.
Okay.
1.3%.
Well, I was right. It's less than 0.5%. No. No, it's not.
What? What happened?
That doesn't make, that's not, okay. Math on the fly. That's not right.
1% is that much. So it's more. than
Okay, so it's
1%.
1 point, more than 1%, 1.3.
Okay.
Oh, good thing we
Okay.
didn't listen to me.
That looks like the right number, 3.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's more than 1%. That's maybe beyond where we want to go as a committee. So, Mitch, did you want to make a motion on the last two?
Sure.
Okay.
I'd move that we take what we have left and allocate it proportionately based on the average recommended funding amount for Salvation Army Parent Child Involvement Project and Volunteers of America Family Relief Nursery.
How do you, what's the number?
So if we have $100 left to spend,
We have,
the ratio, I know it's different, I'm just trying to make it easy. The ratio between the 287 and the 547, like I said, roughly, it's it's 2 to 1 for $1 to the Salvation
right.
Army, $2 to Volunteers of America. So split it roughly. Yeah.
Yeah, 1/3, 2/3, yeah, exactly. Was there a second for that?
that just changed.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. And do members want to see the numbers before they vote on it? Okay.
I think you could do, where was the balance?
I thought the balance was like 441.
It was.
Why did it change?
No, remember you added the 50 over in,
Oh.
In foster
In
care,
foster care to Boys and
for
Girls
the Boys
Aid.
and Girls Aid.
I think that was omitted by the
we'll take that out.
Take that out
maker of the
now?
motion, yeah.
Okay.
Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that was, yeah. I don't
Okay,
know
so
who
go
made that
back to
motion.
foster care.
That's foster care?
Yes, and Boys and
This goes
Girls
back to
Aid,
150?
150.
Yeah.
Correct.
Here, so take 443. Yeah, I got it.
So
So that gives you,
that's less than 150,000 for a minimum grant amount. So
It was the opposite.
oh, did I do
way
it backwards?
too.
I think he wanted.
Yeah, he wanted one
Or
third
if
there.
if we're down to there, a minimum award,
Wanna go
$150,000
here?
award to one of them and the rest to the other.
But I think you got the order wrong. I
Yeah, I
mean,
was just
I
saying,
did.
Mitch, can I just
Fixing
clarify?
that.
You
it's
wanted
this?
actually 2/3 to VOA, Family Relief Nursing, and 1/3 to Salvation
Correct.
Army, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
do you see what I'm saying, John?
Yeah.
That looks better, yeah.
So what I did is minimum to Salvation Army and balance. It's not exactly 2/3, 1/3 because
Okay.
it would get us below the minimum grant amount.
So are members comfortable there, or?
Yes.
I wish we had more. Can't you guys make it more money? Be a lot easier.
Okay, well then, so it's been, it was moved and seconded, now we've seen the numbers, is there any further discussion? I would say all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so that does complete our investment decisions for the new cycle of the Children's Levy that begins July 1st, 2014. For 3 years, we've made decisions. The levy, as you all know, does last 5 years, so we will be revisiting these funding decisions for the additional 2 years. I really want to thank all of my colleagues on the allocation committee, Mitch Horniker, Julie S. Young, Serena Stoudemire Wesley, and I particularly want to note that this is Chair Madrigal's perhaps one of her last appearances in recent history as an elected official, but, you know, I have a hunch she may be back as an elected official at some level, but I want to thank her for her leadership of Multnomah County and for her participation as a erstwhile member of the allocation committee, so thank you very much, particularly Marisa. And certainly want to thank the staff for all of their hard work, all of our citizen reviewers who reviewed these proposals. I want to thank Shannon Callahan on my staff also for her hard work and counsel. And lastly, to all of you who are providing such important services to Portland's children. We wish we had more money to invest because you're all doing very good work out there, and definitely worth every penny of the services you're providing to help make our children safe and successful. So thank you to all of you. And we stand adjourned until who knows when.
Some point in the future, we've got to allocate 350 to another program.
Oh, we do have to allocate 350 for culture-specific African-American child abuse prevention. So we'll let you know when we're due that. We'll be back. Okay. Thank you.
Right.